Hey guys, so this is my pedagogy project, and I titled it Tatum's Diving Adventure. So let's get into it. So the skill I'm going to be talking about today is the basic goalkeeper dive off to the side. So it's a discrete skill. You start standing up in a athletic stance, and you end either when you touch the ball or you touch the ground. It's open as the ball is always coming in at a different angle or speed, and it's a gross motor skill due to the large muscle movements needed for your balance, reaction speed, and some body spatial awareness. So when a ball is coming in away from your body and goal, this basic dive is the most effective and efficient way to get the ball securely and safely, in order to keep it out of the net. So Tatum graciously allowed me to teach her how to do this goalkeeper dive, which isn't easy. As you can see in this first video, Tatum takes a small prep step and gets her hands to the ball. However, her ending position results in her hands getting to the floor before her body, and she ends up landing on her stomach. So, also in the second video, Tatum has a much larger prep step, misreads the ball, and lands on her elbow knee, and which results in her trapping the ball underneath her insecurely. So, some things that are great about having Tatum as a learner is that she's athletic. She shows eye-hand coordination, multi-limb coordination. She has footwork, as shown in that prep step, and good proprioception from her time as a field hockey player. She also shows a willingness to fall, which is necessary in order to do this skill, and also is very difficult as we as humans are conditioned to avoid falling. So based on the pretest, some things that we wanted to really focus on moving forward are a fear of falling that Tatum told me about right off the bat when we started. And that's kind of what was causing that impulse bracing of the elbow and knee onto the floor. She also had an over rotation of her trunk, which caused her torso to end up facing the ground rather than having her torso face the field. Finally, we really want to focus on the technique of a goal keeper. It's modeled in this picture on the slide. You want to have this is kind of the goal finishing position for a goalkeeper, or ideal. Doesn't always happen, but this is kind of what we want to have in mind. With that top knee out as a shield, arms protecting the face, and hands out in front to meet the ball. And then this all protects the keeper and also keeps the keeper moving in a forward motion. There are some issues in terms of Tatum's positioning and pattern with the dive, which is limiting the explosive power that she can get out of the dive to get to the ball as fast as she can. So my lessons are really kind of based around this optimal theory. So every single lesson started off with the same warm up. And this is to increase consistency and to allow Tatum to have something that she felt confident in, and to give her some successes at the beginning of each lesson in order to have some enhanced expectancies and then to get into the lesson. This also helped create proper levels of arousal and attention so that Tatum is in the proper headspace to get into diving, because it's part mental of a skill. You need to be ready to be able to throw your body. And then it also served as a good indicator of skill assessment, as the speed and smoothness in which she was performing this warm up was a good measure of automaticity at the beginning of each session. Also, upon this theory, using external and analogous cues, some of the biggest ones that we used were cutting the grass with your fingertips to keep that hand low on the floor, driving your shoe into the ground behind you to get some of that power, pushing your gloves through the ball for that forward motion, creating a spade with your hands to secure it behind the ball, tracking the ball like a hawk tracking its prey, using the ground as a third hand. And so these were all cues that really tried to cue Tatum into some external focuses. And then finally, autonomy support. So I tried to give autonomy to Tatum in as much of the activities as I could. So in many of the activities, she had control over the pacing of it when just like the timing of her reps. And this allowed her to use that internal feedback to self-correct and problem solve. And then she also had that opportunity to ask questions during the session. And if she ever wanted to get more reps after our set number of reps, she always had that option to add a couple more. So moving forward, the lesson approach overview. So lesson one, early cognitive, I really tried to focus in on command style. I modeled technique and used block training to get in lots of reps and to minimize cognitive load. Um, to further minimize this cognitive load, I also made the skill as closed as possible by making the ball stationary instead of moving. And then in lesson two, we moved kind of into late cognitive and maybe possibly early associative, as she was showing these key aspects of form and some decreased clunkiness of the movements. And this is where we use some more block training initially, but got into some more repetition without repetition as we started moving and rolling the ball at her, meaning that every rep would be similar but slightly different in terms of positioning and timing. Lesson three, early late stage of associative learning, focuses strengthening these skills and showing more smoothness and consistency. We added in some serial drills that required some footwork, cutting, and then receiving a shot, in addition to this repetition without repetition. And to meet her challenge point, we also switched gears halfway through this one and added a discovery style for diving in the air about halfway through, which allowed her some autonomy of timing as I guided her with some questions as she applied previous knowledge from getting balls on the ground to how she can like explore how to apply those to receiving a ball in the air. And then in lesson four, which was an associative, we used blocks, serial, some random sessions to continue meeting her challenge point and to focus on improvement to decision making and tracking the ball, which can be done only with random trading. And so the first two lessons required a lot of augmented quick feedback to fix technique and help Tatum figure out the mechanics. And then I allowed for increased amounts of internal feedback as we move forward to lessons three and four, and then waited to provide terminal feedback after the inactivity or a certain amount of reps to allow Tatum the time to work through timing and problem solve. So, basic lesson overview. Lesson one was basic technique of diving to the side, feeling safe with the dive, and also working through this fear of falling. Lesson two continued with that, working through fear of falling, diving, and then specifically in terms of diving to the side, working on that timing and reaching the ball before it comes to you. Lesson three, diving for balls in the air, work, and then applying that technique and timing from lesson one and two. And then lesson four, diving on the ground and in the air, putting it all together, and then just kind of smoothing everything out. So, goals and objectives that I had for Tatum were to understand the importance of and be able to replicate cues for diving technique, from the standing position to the final position, to be able to grow in confidence in terms of the dive and to decrease that fear of falling in order to prevent that elbow and knee from hitting the floor before her body, and to also just have that confidence in the dive, to work through her timing of the dive, and to also demonstrate some eye-hand coordination in order to secure the ball in her hands. So in terms of post-test, some big main improvements from this initial video are shown here as her trunk is no longer rotating, and she brings that top knee up across the body as protection, meets the ball in front of her, and moves forward with her dive. And she's showing a lot more comfortability falling. There is still some stiffness on the first video, because there was some hip tightness that was limiting movement. However, even though there might have been a rep in one of these videos that she didn't necessarily catch the ball, Tatum still made hand-eye coordination. She still made contact with the ball and pushed it outside of the cone that represented the post of the goal. And then so in that second video, she really showed that eye-hand coordination, keeping the ball in her hands. So I know I didn't take a pretest video of this, but showing the application of those skills from that first video to receiving a ball in the air. So you can see there's great ball tracking in the air and with her hands securing the ball and bringing it down to the ground. The dives serve to show the adjustment Tatum's made to bring this ball down to the ground and shows how she's able to reproduce this proper diving technique here. So, anticipated outcomes. Some that I saw were that by the end of the lessons, Tatum was able to reproduce the diving technique, just based on all the amount of repetitions that we were able to do throughout our lessons, and she was able to show basic diving skills. And additionally, I assume that there would be some positive transfer for field hockey footwork that allowed her to get into proper position when receiving a ball that I didn't necessarily need to teach. In terms of unanticipated challenges, there was a reoccurrence of the fear of falling that popped up more than once in that first initial lesson. But this also kind of coupled with overthinking and being really analytical and wanting to do things right. But and this would just kind of result in a block for Tatum sometimes where she just couldn't even dive. But we were able to work through these challenges by building upon these past successful experiences and working on clearing her mind. So the goals I had as an instructor were that I wanted to utilize a variety of teaching techniques, adjust sessions based on Tatum's progress, support Tatum through her fear of falling, using positive reinforcement, and to give direct and efficient feedback. I believe that I met all these goals fairly well as kind of indicated through like based on the adjustments I kind of was able to make throughout this presentation and this project. In terms of what I would do differently, I think I'd take a couple more pre-test videos, maybe try something in the air, something from the side to emphasize the importance of that forward movement. Additionally, I think I'd introduce the movement in a different way instead of just kind of modeling it on the grass. The grass is kind of sticky. It can, it's sometimes it can get, you can get stuck on it. And I think maybe starting off just sitting on maybe more of a smooth surface, maybe a basketball court, and just kind of feeling the glide of the movement could have been helpful. Additionally, Tatum doesn't necessarily want to be a goalkeeper. It's a difficult position to want to be in, just wanting to throw your body everywhere. So I think someone who wants to really be a goalkeeper might be able to benefit from some of these lessons a little bit more. Thank you guys for listening to my presentation. Yay!